Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 4C Environmental Podcast. Today we have as our guest Johan Mlouka. Did I say that properly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. So as part of 4C's mission to provide the most innovative content, we've really looked and searched out for companies who can provide it. One of these companies is Flyability, and Johan is the business development manager for Flyability, a drone manufacturing company. Without further ado, Johan, can you please introduce yourself and introduce your company as well?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. My name is Johan. I'm working with Flyability. Flyability is a Swiss company manufacturing drone, but more so than drone, manufacturing safe drone for complex spaces, for confined spacing. These are drones that are operating indoor. It's called the Helios. It was developed as a research project, as a spin-off of a research project of one of the good technical schools of Switzerland. And the idea basically is we came up to the drone market at a time where all the drone manufacturers were adding sensors to avoid obstacles on their platforms. And we were, observing insects. And as usual, the optimal design comes from nature. And so the houseflies, they do have extremely good collision avoidance sensors. They're extremely hard to catch. But when you do see them bump into a window, they recover quickly and they continue flying. So that was really the genesis of the idea of the project, to make a drone that would be, instead of having sensors to avoid obstacles, that would be able to collide into things and continue flying, maintaining a consistent flight path. So we came up with this idea of having mechanical intelligence around the drone, which is basically a 3-axis exoskeleton or protective frame around the drone, which decouples completely the inside of the drone from the outer frame, making it tolerant to collision. So we came up with Helios, which is the first collision-tolerant drone. And what do we mean by collision-tolerant drone? It's not a crash-proof drone, but it's just a drone that can fly indoor very reliably, because you can have collision in very complex, cluttered spaces, and you're never going to crash the drone because it can absorb the torque of a collision and continue flying. So that makes it a drone that can go to places that no other drones can go.
That's super interesting. I just love that story, because when you read, for instance, you read books like Blue Ocean Strategy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but you guys really saw that there's this absolute saturation of the drone market on the sensor side to avoid collisions, but you guys took a completely different tack and created a solution that, if needed, could do collisions safely. So that's absolutely interesting that you guys kind of came up with that and pursued that. And kind of taking a step back, I mean, you've mentioned a really good once over of your company. Would you say that's like the compelling message of your company, is providing this collision solution that no one else is really pursuing? And why did you guys really take that tack?
It is, but I would say the compelling message of our company, or the motto of our company, is at Flyability, we believe that robots should be sent to dangerous places and hazardous situations instead of humans. And if we take a step back and we really go even before the genesis of the beginning of operation of our company, the whole idea came up from the Fukushima disaster in 2011, where you would see this kind of explosion of the reactor, and the search and rescue teams needed to go and get footages, not only of the outside of the reactor, but also within the core of the reactor, to assess the level of damages that was inside and what would be the mitigation of these damages. And they didn't have any solution to go inside because all the crawlers were getting stuck with obstacles, rumbles. The other robots couldn't fly inside. So that's where it came up, the idea of, we believe that robots should be sent to dangerous situations instead of humans, because at the end of the day, our drone, or any drone, is just a flying robot.
Right. You can replace parts and you can replace widgets, but you can't replace human beings. So I guess you really take that exposure risk out of the whole inspection process. No, that's fantastic. I love that. So going into that too, we make a lot of assumptions of your company based off of what you guys tend to focus on. But companies' focus is really a value of whatever their culture is and their values are. I think with that, you mentioned it in passing, but there's probably a spirit of innovation over there at Flyability. In your words, what do you think makes Flyability tick in terms of culture and values, and how do you guys operate with that culture on a daily basis?
So I would say that at Flyability, we like to provide value, safety, and fun to our clients. Safety, because of course, obviously, the drone can reduce a lot the human exposure to risk by sending it before human interventions. Value, because in terms of industrial inspection, the fact of having a tool being able to do general visual inspection inside confined spaces, which are very dangerous and costly to build scaffolding inside, and are costly also in terms of downtime of asset, can bring a lot of value to our clients. And fun because, at the end of the day, we're a team of passionate roboticists from one of the good technical schools of Europe, which is called EPFL, Polytechnique Lausanne, École Polytechnique de Lausanne. And there's really a kind of flying robotic cluster within this university. We're one of the companies that's coming out of this spirit of flying robotics excellence within the university. SenseFly, another very famous drone company, is out of this university too. And Pix4D, processing software, photogrammetry software. The founders are from EPFL. So there's this kind of student spirit coming from this university that has excellent engineers, and especially in terms of flying robotics. So that's why we had the fun part. And also at the end of the day, piloting a drone, it's useful and it's fun. So if you can have the two at the same time, that's exactly the kind of things we want our clients to benefit from.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of your orientation and how you guys operate, I can definitely see where your roots lie. And I don't know what water they have up there over at the Polytechnique de Luzerne, but
Yeah.
it must be really good if they're producing out a lot of roboticists and enthusiasts. So kudos to you guys. So kind of taking a step back, how long has your main product been around?
So the Helios has been around for about 3 years now, a little bit more. 3 years ago, it was just the very early stages prototype. And this prototype allowed us to win an award in the United Arab Emirates, the Drones for Good Award, because at the very beginning of the company, the idea was to have applications in the search and rescue or the public safety industry, let's say. We won an award in the UAE because the drone could go to places that no other robot could go. Thanks to this award, we could make the product evolve, have several iterations, transition to a kind of full industrial model. Then we've also raised some capital, of course, to help us in our expansion. And we really moved towards a more industrial production scale. We've sold about 350 of the systems on a global scale and everywhere around the world. I mean, the US is one of our largest markets, but you would also think of other markets like Canada, Europe, Japan, because at the end of the day, the main difference that we're bringing to the market is that having a solution that can tolerate collision. So we're pretty much almost the only one or the most advanced in having a solution that can fly indoor. Of course, you have overlaps with other types of platform. If you want to fly, for example, in Mavic, in a large closed space, you're going to be able to do it. But when it comes to more narrow and cluttered spaces, it's going to be more difficult. So there's some overlaps with other platforms, but I think in terms of the overall picture on flying in confined spaces, indoor spaces, we really have a unique product that can bring unique features to its users.
So which industry have you guys made the most inroads in? Because I know this technology is very applicable to a lot of different types of inspections, but which industry are you most heavy in?
The one that we know the most, I would say, would be utilities, power generation, in terms of power stations that are fueled by coal or by combined cycle power plants or by fuel. Because you do have to inspect these big boilers where they burn the fuel into energy. And traditionally, these boilers are extremely complicated to stop and it takes time to cool them down. Once they're cooled down, you have to build scaffolding inside the whole structure just to do a general visual inspection of the burners and the superheaters. With the drone, you really cut down on downtime and on cost because you just send the drone before for a general visual inspection and then you build only tactical scaffolding where it's needed. So you really improve on cost efficiency of your inspection. And you also decrease the risk because, we've seen a lot of accidents in this kind of industry where you would have the scaffolding collapsing on workers that are working below. So unfortunately, there's been a lot of incidents in this industry, fatal injuries. So that's the biggest industry for us so far. But there's also, we had a lot of successes in terms of the nuclear industry also, when you have to do inspection in contaminated areas. And usually they have to decrease the power of the reactor to 20% to be able to send their inspection teams for only 2 minutes, because in 2 minutes they get the annual level of radiation that they're allowed to. So really with the drone, you can really have a positive impact on this kind of safety, of risk exposure to your workers.
Right. And more of a safer alternative, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the other industries that we're having good success would be the oil and gas, of course, industry. There's a lot of application in the refining or in the downstream part of the oil and gas when it comes to inspecting above ground storage tanks. So again, you're avoiding part of the human entry to these confined spaces, or when it comes to inspecting the FCC units or the delayed coker. And at the end of the day, these are objectives that all the oil and gas tier one corporation, like the likes of Chevron, the likes of Shell, of BP, of Total, have in their HSE procedure is they want to avoid human entry to confined spaces as soon as possible. Some have even the goal of completely removing human entry to confined spaces by 2020. So the drone, or this drone in particular, can really be one of their tools in their palettes of tools that they can use instead of having to send people in. And aside from that, I mean, lots of other industries, the mining industries, the maritime industries, cement, wherever you do have confined spaces that you need to go inside to inspect, and the drone makes sense, you can use it. And on the other scope of the market, the public safety, which is split into, I would say, search and rescue purposes, when you have to intervene in a half-collapsed building. And the last one would be for SWAT team, when you have a hostile situation. And it's already been used by very prestigious police forces or SWAT police forces worldwide. When you have a hostile, you need to enter quickly in the building before your guys go in to have just an assessment of where are the enemies and what are the potential dangers before you guys come in. There you go. You have a tool that can allow you to have a very good and easy deployable tool that can allow you to have a good overview of what's happening inside a building.
And kind of keep your people safe as well.
Yeah.
And so obviously the 4C conference is very heavy on the downstream side. In regards to your specific implementation projects on the downstream side, what's been your greatest insight in working with those clients and trying to provide your solution to them?
For me, the oil and gas industry is kind of conservative when it comes to change. That would be my first take of having compared to other industries. But it's starting to pick up, and they're starting to understand that the drone is the tool that they can use to improve their standard operational procedure. But what is slowing them down, I would say, and that's true for any industry, but I would say a bit more maybe for the oil and gas industry, because there's a high risk involved. So they don't want to change procedures that has been working for 10, 20, or 30 years that have been working well. But that's the main challenge, I would say. My insight would be, yes, drone is a very good tool. It can help you achieve a lot of cost savings and increase safety. But then if you're going this way as an asset owner, you have also to commit some human resources to the project, because you're going to need pilots, you're going to be legal people that are going to deal with air traffic regulation or anything related to drones, because drones are aircraft. And you're going to also need to integrate that in your workflow of inspection or in your standard operational procedures, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to change them. So it's not only about buying a platform that has certain type of capabilities, it's also how to integrate it in your daily operation and how to help your workers integrate the change. So that would be my insight about the downstream industry.
That's really interesting, because you said a lot of the oil and gas industry. There's a lot of risk management practices and processes that they have to go through to take a brand new technology solution, process it, and then, as you said, integrate it into their workflow, integrate it into their processes, evaluate completely before it could ever get to the point of being that scalable solution that they use and leverage on a day-to-day basis to do some incredible things. So no, I completely understand that aspect.
And so far, from my experience, what I've seen is, compared to other industries where the end user or the asset owners buy the platform and develop in-house or their own department, I would say the oil and gas industry or the downstream industry is lagging a bit behind on that. And they have more tendency of contracting third-party inspection companies that are our clients also, but they're doing it as a service from a service providing standpoint instead of going the way of integrating the technology in-house.
Absolutely. So I think you're alluding to it right there, because my next question was going to be, what do you think is going to have the greatest impact to influencing this industry along? But what's your take on it? Is this a boundary that needs to be overcome, or what do you think would convince the oil and gas stakeholders to really adopt this technology?
What would convince them is doing proof of concept trials. And once they start to understand the benefits of the technologies, they would be more inclined to start implementing it. So I think what would change from my perspective, we're still in a very early adopter stage of the confined spaces drone technology. And I hope this would change in the future. But I would say that they need to go, and it's normal, it's a big organization. They have to take it one step at a time. How we can help them change at least, or how I would see them to be the best suited solution for them, is to go small by small, do a very small scale project. For example, if you're taking one of the big oil and gas major, they could start thinking of doing a kind of pilot project within one of their small refineries for 3-6 months, and then really quantify the savings in terms of costs and in terms of also, I don't know how to quantify that, but increase in safety or decrease in incidents or increase in reliability of their assets, and then go from there to kind of a more broader scale deployment. But I think what's going to help them, and the way I see it right now, is that they have to go step by step, do kind of pilot projects with small implementations before going broader. And the other thing, of course, is going to be the evolution of the technology, because I'm talking a lot about the possibilities of our drone, but there is also limitations as any, physical, and technical limitation. As any technologies, you do have some limitations, and this is something that the oil and gas people have to understand. I mean, one of the major objections that we're having from the downstream industry is your drone ATEX or intrinsically safe or class 1 Div 1, whatever you call it, depending on the continent and the country.
X-proof there.
Yeah, X-proof. And my answer is always the same, is of course there's no such drone that exists. It's impossible in the state of the technology that exists right now. But I'm trying to help my client understand how to mitigate this kind of risk. And basically you have to work under a hot work permit, meaning that you vent the tank before interventions or you purge them with nitrogen. And it's already something that they're doing for other equipment. So if you're very honest from the beginning and you help your client understand this kind of limitation, and if you're very transparent about the limitation and do not overpromise, I think there's a lot of that also that prevents oil and gas companies to go broader, is from past experience that people are promising them kind of unrealistic things and then they don't deliver.
Right.
So at Flyability, we honestly prefer to underpromise and overdeliver than the opposite, if I would say so.
Right. Kind of falling prey to the tech hubris, if you will. There's definitely a spirit within the tech realm of that overpromising type of aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, super fascinating, especially for someone like you on the technology side, to get your take on what's going to take to get this solution really be what we see. It really provide that cross section of safety, technology, and operational scale, which we all know it could do, but unless incorporated into the processes of these companies and based off of the physical limitations of the technology as it is now, we're not quite there yet. So I'm absolutely with you in terms of agreeing that there's a lot of runtime on this and definitely a lot of time to process, innovate, really work this in.
Yeah.
So I think we've hit all of the major points, but you mentioned from the cultural values, your focuses, the culture, as well as your perspective on what could influence the market. With that, my last question to you is, what's next for Flyability? What is your next focus over the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you guys plan to align yourself with all of these different developments that you see within the market?
So what's next for us? Basically, we're working on the definition of what would our next line of product look like. And basically, we're working on the 3 main axes. We want to stay in this part of the market where we are a manufacturer of technology, a provider of technology, and more so a provider of indoor drone solution or indoor robotic flying solution. Having said that, we know the limitation of our product. And of course, we're working on 3 main axes right now. We want to improve the ease of use of this kind of product. We want to increase the flight time, of course, and we want to increase the quality of the payload and maybe the versatility of the payload. So that's the 3 axes we're working on. And in the next 5 to 10 years, of course, our goal is to become the kind of DJI of indoor drones, if I would say so, because we've been really creating this market. If you look at it from a market segmentation perspective, no solution existing for this kind of market. So it's hard to create the market. It demands a lot of energy, but at the end of the day, we're in this very sweet spot where if we continue digging in and improving our technology, we're going to be the market leader on this particular of the market.
You're not going to have any competitors in that space.
I think there will be. If you're the first, you've made all the effort to open the market and people would know you for that. So if you're the first, you have a strong chance of, if you're not, of course, resting on the things that you already developed and continuing improving your technology, of course, you have a strong chance of becoming the leader of a market that is very small as of today and that has huge potential, not only in the oil and gas industry, but in a very wide range of industries.
Absolutely. Or as we jokingly say in the US, if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Johan, it was a pleasure having you here today, and we look forward to your presentation at the 4C conference.
Thank you very much, guys, and I look forward to meeting you in San Antonio later this year, and therefore.
As Johan mentioned, Johan and Flyability will be doing a presentation at the 4C conference. The 4C conference will take place April 3rd through the 5th. His specific presentation will be on the 3rd, and will take place in San Antonio, Texas at the JW Marriott Hill Country Resort. If you'd like to listen to Johan, please register today and join us. With that, Johan, thank you for your time, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you very much.